Okay, a couple of people have asked what we're doing to the old Fordson E83W. Originally this little project just started as changing the exhaust because the downpipe from the manifold was rotten, had a lot of pinholes in it and was starting to burn through. So we don't need an exhaust, but to do the exhaust on this truck is a right pain in the arse, as you can see. We've had to take the entire passenger side wing off, the inner wing out, just to get to the manifold, so we can get to the clamp that actually holds the downpipe to the manifold. Yeah, it wasn't too bad, to be honest, but whilst we're here we thought we'd do a couple of other bits and pieces to it. It's always had a very noisy tick to it ever since I put it back together. It never used to have that tick before, and I was pretty certain that it would be one lifter, this one here. It's hard to really tell on the camera, but it's the only lifter that's different. This engine had one broken lifter when we took it apart, and that one was a new one from a company called Small Fords here in the UK, and it's a completely different design to the originals. I don't know why they sell them. It's absolutely awful to try and adjust it. It's terrible. All the other ones have just got one single bolt with a really fine thread, so they're always tight. So you just need two open-ended spanners, a feeler gauge, and you're away. But this one has got 3 bolts on it for some reason. So you've got to get in between this bolt here, the adjuster that's there, and the actual notches in the lifter itself to hold the lifter straight. And there's no way to do that with it in the proper position to adjust it. You've got to do the adjustment with the valve up, which you shouldn't do anyway because there's no way to get the clearance set properly, and then you've just got to eyeball it. And the first time I did it I thought I had it okay, but when we put it together it was noisy. But by that time there was the whole engine out again to do it, and I just didn't want to do that, so I put up with the ticking noise. But we've just had a go at adjusting it now, and we've got the gap down to a much more sensible. It's very similar to the gap on the original lifters, so I'm confident now that the ticking noise should either hopefully be resolved completely or will at least be a little bit quieter, and then we'll go from there and see what it's like. But before, when I took it apart the other day and I got to that lifter, there was a lot of gap there, definitely more than 12 to 15 thousandths of an inch. Must have been 30, 35, even to the point where I thought it had worked loose, but it hadn't. So that's what we're up to at the moment. So we've just been on hold for a couple of days whilst we waited for a new gasket to come. That's been delivered this morning, so we can start to put the engine back together. A couple of other bits and pieces we're doing to it. We fitted a dynamator system to it. Absolutely sick of the old Dynamo playing up and not charging the battery and coming out and the battery being flat and having to jump it before I could go to a show. That was getting on my nerves. So we fitted this dynamator. We've got a dummy regulator box there now, so it's got no internals in it, but does have a 50 amp fuse in there, which is quite nice for the truck because it's obviously 1952. There's no fuses at all on this thing, so if anything went wrong and something shorted, it would now pop that fuse and save the truck. Whereas before, minus me noticing it smoking before it caught fire and just killing it on the switch down there, that would have been about our only escape route. But now, hopefully, if there's a real big short ground, it should kill the fuse before it does any damage. So that's a good little thing to have. Obviously we'd already fitted the electronic distributor and the Viper coil because we were again sick to death of the old points and condensers on this thing. Just could not get it to sit happy. All of the points I was buying, again from that Small Fords company, they wore out in 50 miles. It was ridiculous. So we got rid of that and just gone to an electronic distributor in it, but that's been running with that for a good few hundred miles now. Obviously another thing we've had to do to get to the exhaust is take the floor out of the truck, but that's not a hard job on this. So we've also started to set up an electronic fuel pump. Again, nothing wrong with the mechanical pump that was on it, it was fine, but I have to prime it every time I come out to start it, and I just want to get in it and fire it up and go, really, rather than trying to get my hand down. It's a really tight fit in between the engine and the pump to prime it, so you'd often come out with cuts and scrapes. But now we've got an electronic fuel pump on there. That's a positive earth pump, so to ground, and then we're just going to tap this power feed, either go back to the switch, or we'll just come off of one of the switches for the lighting circuit, I suppose, where we know we've got power, and go from there. I did try and get power off of the coil, but for some reason it didn't like that. I've yet to find out if I've burnt the coil out or not, but we shall see. But yeah, other than that, that's the start of the new exhaust system that's going in. So just literally one downpipe, one connection, and that's it. So hopefully nothing to give us any problems there in the future. Other than that, I think that's about it that we're doing to it. I've got 2 new front indicators to go on. I was having a lot of problems sourcing the original bulbs for these ones. They've not got the bayonet type bulb. They've got the almost like the one you see in an old car interior light, sort of like a bullet shaped bulb. Only way I can really describe it. But for love nor money, I cannot get the bulb for these indicators. I've bought them again off of that company. They came too small. So we've got 2 new indicators on it, the ones same as this, nice amber bezel on there, and then it's got a little chrome ring, so it shouldn't look any different, to be honest. But yeah, other than that, everything else seems to be okay. We've just got to probably sort a new fan belt. I'll probably run it with this emergency belt for a while. I can't see any reason why that'll fail. It's not tight, it's not on there particularly tight. It doesn't have to be. This pump will spin no matter how tight that belt is on there. It'll just do its job. Doesn't need much circulation. Tiny little engine on a massive radiator, and it only ever really got hot when it was sat in traffic for ages. But yeah, so we're just going to start putting it back together now, hopefully. We've got to find a blanking plate for the old fuel pump, because we're not going to put the mechanical pump back on it, but I will keep the mechanical pump in the truck with the fittings, just in case. You never know. I don't know why I bother, to be honest, because if it did break down I could just call the RAC and get recovered home, but I always try and fix them. I've done all sorts of things. Last time we had it out, another job that I've got to do actually, last time we took it to Santa Pod, I don't know if you can quite see down in there, just there you can see a pair of handles there for a pair of rice grips. Last time we were coming back from Santa Pod, I got a real horrible grinding noise, and I thought, ah crap. I pulled into a lay-by quickly and shut it off. The starter motor had fallen out, completely fallen out. Both bolts were, the top bolt was loose, it was still there, but the bottom bolt had gone, and I couldn't find anything at the side of the road, so I put that pair of vice grips on it, and they have been on there, oh God, since July odd time last year, I think. So it's probably done a couple of 100 miles with those vice grips on there. So that's another job that I've got to do. That's just reminded me of that. But yeah, other than that, it's not a bad little rig. We'll get it back on the road. Obviously, nowhere to go at the moment. Can't even really drive it. You're not supposed to. Yeah, it's not really an essential journey, so I'll probably get pulled over if I took this out. So yeah, a nice time to work on it, but nowhere to really go.